So, our first question. How would your party support innovation in Canadian businesses, the development of new products, the improvement of business productivity, and most importantly, how would you tie those big picture innovations back to our riding? That question is for John to start with. You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think the best way for federal government to support business innovation and productivity is to get out of the way. I think no one knows how to run their businesses better than business owners. What our job as a federal government is to create an environment that allows them to succeed. And there's a couple of ways that we have done that. First off, reducing the small business tax several times over the last few years, and now again in our budget 2015, reducing it from 11 to 9%. The more money small business owners have in their pocket, the more likely they are to invest that into their business, which means improvement in innovation, products, but also creating jobs. But as well, some other programs we've done is the Red Tape Reduction Act. That was passed last year. That reduces the red tape that small businesses have to deal with. What that has done is that has saved small business owners millions of dollars already in this first year by eliminating bureaucracy. But here at home, 2 programs that I'm very proud of is the Futurepreneur program, which we have recommitted to. That has allowed young people 35 and under to create more than 7,000 new small businesses across Canada and more than 6,000 new small business owners. So this is a really exciting program that will impact us here. And as well as another program that we've recommitted to is Community Futures. I'm sure many of you here in this room have dealt with Community Futures in one way or another. That is an opportunity for small business owners to access low-interest loans from a government department where they can't get loans from your traditional bank. They might be too risky. But this is an opportunity for them to access different loans. We have Community Future offices throughout the Foothills riding. So these are where we have these kinds of operations right here on the ground in the riding to support local businesses. See, ahead of time.
And we just gained 15 seconds, folks.
So to develop businesses, or to help with the development of business in the Foothills riding, we have a large infrastructure program that we're bringing in, $60 billion for infrastructure spending across Canada. And what that does is it improves our infrastructure to enable businesses to have the structure in place to grow. So it helps to grow our economy. And in addition to that, we are going to reduce, for small businesses, we are going to keep the reduction in small business tax to 9%, but we will also reduce the EI premiums that employers need to pay from $2.63 to $2.31. And we will invest $100 million annually in clean technology producers, many of whom are small and medium-sized companies. That might be very interesting for the Foothills. And we will invest $500 million in the federal provincial labor market agreements to help ensure small and medium-sized business owners have access to a well-trained labor force. We will also have job skills training programs in collaboration with the provinces by $750 million annually. This will include $500 million annual increase in funding to the labor market development agreements with provinces and the territories, a $200 million annual increase in funding to be delivered by the provinces and territories focused on training for workers who are not currently eligible for federal training investment, and a Liberal government will renew and expand funding by $50 million to the Aboriginal skills and training strategy. I know that when we were in Pincher Creek, a rancher said that he was looking into increasing meat packing because of amount of time.
So right off the top, you'll hear a difference between our party and a number of the others. And the questions that tend to come up on the campaign trail are, how will your government do X? And you'll hear from the other candidates, we'll give $1 million for this, $1 billion for that. John gave a very good Conservative answer, but unfortunately that's not how the Conservative Party has actually governed. The only jobs that government creates, despite all their claims, are jobs in the bureaucracy. The Conservative Party has done a good job of that. The size of government has grown by 42% since Mr. Harper came into power. But the idea of getting government out, reducing red tape, they've made some strides, but there's a lot further to go. The tax code in Canada right now, if you print it out, would fill 4 football fields. This is not a government that avoids intervention and creates a level playing field for business. The innovation is there, the ideas are there. I would love to see Alison come and build one of her wonderful geothermal rigs, but I think she should do it as a business. It shouldn't be up to government to decide which priorities are worth supporting. Foothills is uniquely situated as it has all of the drivers of the economy. We've got agriculture, we've got forestry, we've got energy, we've got tourism. There's nobody in Ottawa who can know what's the priority to build. Organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, like business owners, like people in these towns and in the rural areas, they know where the ideas are and they need to be supported to actually make them possible. So there are places for the government to get involved. Infrastructure funding is certainly there, but it shouldn't be something chosen, winners and losers, from Ottawa. It should be infrastructure funding available. Our proposal is to make that through the Bank of Canada, interest-free loans to municipalities and other levels of government. This was done after World War II by the then Liberal government, set off the longest-lasting economic boom in Canada. We'd like to go back to those proven and tried principles once again.
Thank you.
My attempt at humor, Mark, I have many talents, but I'm not a driller, so we don't have to worry about that. But I am here tonight representing the NDP because I don't believe the Conservatives have created that environment for success and that environment for innovation. So here's some hard stats. On the innovation ranking worldwide, Canada is now out of the top 10. We used to be in the top 10 before the Conservatives. We're now 12th. Alberta, which is very shocking, is 15th. There are 3 other provinces ahead of us in innovation: Ontario, Quebec, BC. Alberta has the highest per capita percentage of geoscientists and engineers in the world, but we're 15th in innovation. It's because the Conservatives have stifled our innovation and our growth. There are people like myself and others in agriculture, in oil and gas, in tourism who want to do more, but haven't been given the tools to succeed. So to get through the numbers really quickly, then I'll go into a local example. $4.5 billion under the NDP for green bonds. Access to capital for small entrepreneurs is the main hurdle to getting into a business. Having green bonds, innovation bonds available to them is a big step in the right direction. We're also cutting small business tax from 11% down to 9%. 80% of all jobs in Canada reside with small business. Only 20% are in corporations. 80%, that's what we need to focus on, the small businesses. We have a $160 million innovation kickstart tax credit that we'll be giving to any company who's willing to do innovative things. 40,000 jobs created for youth. They're the ones with these new ideas, the fresh ideas, the ideas that will take us through to the future. And $20 million into apprenticeships. I'm going to coin a phrase tonight. Foothills is the triple point for renewable energy in Canada and I think the world. Collectively, we have more geothermal energy and heat and power capacity, solar and wind, than anywhere else, and we're not using it. There are many companies, Google, Facebook, the data servers, they all want to use just renewable energy. We can bring them here, sort of manufacturing for renewable energy, and host those data servers.
Thank you. Bonnie.
First of all, I agree. Let's start my timer again. Because I'm going to get my own class. The Green Party is prepared to put Canadians facing fully forward into the future and enough of looking back to how we did things in the past, because that's where innovation comes from. And one of the main things we have to do is set firm targets for our climate change accord that's coming up in December in Paris. And as a federal government, this is what we really have to mandate. We have to say this is where we're heading, these are the goals we need to achieve, so businesses can take that information and they can make those innovative changes that they need. The second most important thing that the Green Party will be doing will be offering free tuition for all post-secondary education, including retraining, apprenticeship programs that will be phased in over the next 5 years. So yeah, it's not just enough to innovate, but we need to have the skill sets, we need to have people getting into those trainings to be able to move the innovation forward. So won't it be wonderful when you get to be able to say, you know what, I've always wanted to learn that, but I didn't have the money to do it. And the Green Party will be making sure you have the money to do that, to move yourself and move your businesses forward into innovation. And as far as the local situation goes, again, Alison really summed it up well. This is we have so much going for us, and this area in the Foothills Riding start capitalizing on it. That's looking back. We need to look forward and really embrace what the future is going to bring for us. Thank you.
You folks have done this before. You're getting good at it. We've only got a few more days to go. Does anybody want to use a rebuttal card? Hearing none, we'll move along. The second question is we're going to start with Tanya and move down, and then come back and follow with John. So this relates to, we're calling it the economic diversification kind of concept again. The Highway 3 corridor and the Highway 2 corridor represent an opportunity to better link southern Alberta communities and increase the flow of goods and tourists from BC to Saskatchewan and from Alberta to the United States and beyond. Is there a federal role to support part of the national highway system in partnership with the province? And from your perspective, what might that infrastructure priority look like? Tanya.
Well, that's a good question for the Liberals, because we're the ones who are bringing in $60 billion in additional infrastructure funding over the next 10 years in order to kickstart the economy, with a lot of people losing their jobs right now. So I know, many times I've driven down the highway and seen improvements that were a shared plan between federal and provincial government. So I expect that that can also be a plan for Highway 3 and Highway 2. We will have the money to put money into the Foothills region. So I know a lot of the money will be also tagged for flood mitigation, but we should also have some other money. And this infrastructure spending will help with rural and small businesses to grow. And well, I'm just assuming that any infrastructure will grow the economy and provide services for people.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Certainly infrastructure is very important, and again, it's the way in which it's brought across, the way in which it's implemented, that's critical. You've heard already, the Green Party will make sure that you have money to fill in the blank, but that blank is something that the government has determined is a priority. So as long as you line up with what they want, they'll give you money for your project. That's not the way it should be. You know the needs. The provincial governments know the needs. The local governments know the needs. Those are the people who should be making the decisions, not bureaucrats in Ottawa. So infrastructure funding, absolutely. Is there a role for the federal government in that? Yeah, we're a federal system. Part of that means that the feds and the provinces should be working together on items of national priority. Unfortunately, that has not happened for some time. First Minister's meeting, I don't remember when the last one is, but it's a long time. The communication between provinces and the federal government is dysfunctional. And that relationship absolutely needs to be restored. Another example of that, trade barriers. There's been some excellent international trade agreements signed by the Conservative government, increasing opportunities. It's actually easier to get international trade out of Canada these days than it is to get into provincial trade. And those conversations absolutely need to happen. So priorities, some of them are national, but it's not up to the government. It should be up to the people in the area who know the needs to determine the priorities for Canada.
Thank you.
I think I'll just keep with my theme. I'll get rid of the numbers right away and then go into examples. So $1.5 billion a year is what the NDP would like to spend on infrastructure. These are job-stimulating ideas and the way to get our economy going. I want to thank you, Bob, for the question, because I did speak about the logistics hub that Foothills is just the other night in another forum. So I coined the phrase the triple point for renewable energy. But we're also a logistics hub, as has been described in the question. We've got the U.S. to our south, all the way up to Calgary, and onwards to the Trans-Canada Highway, and then east and west across Highway number 3. We're perfectly situated in Foothills to be doing more and to be attracting people to be using our hub. And so driving in tonight, we saw road trains. I saw the big trains as well going back and forth over the Pincher Creek. And the Procore cars in particular are my favorite. I used to be a sulfur plant engineer, so the molten cars from Procore are good memories for me. However, we need to have a hub that does something. Right now we're not doing enough in Foothills, and especially here in Fort Macleod. And so the idea of kickstarting a renewable energy regime, not just for the province, but for the country, right here in Foothills, and having local content manufacturing. So Foothills itself, Fort Macleod itself would be manufacturing components for the windmills, for the solar panels, for the geothermal wells. These are the types of things that will bring people to the hub. We are logistically well suited, that's great. Now we need to use that hub. We need to attract people and want people to be flowing goods through the hub. I have many examples tonight. I'll be talking about how to increase our hub through tourism, through renewable energy, through manufacturing, and I do encourage questions from the floor as well. But having a hub is not good enough. We need to have a manufacturing center and goods to move through that hub. And I'm here to lead that change, to make sure that our economy not just recovers, but we go higher, higher than we've ever been, because we're going to make use of everything we have, and not just be told we can only do one thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Green Party actually would, instead of looking at doing more with highways, actually is wanting to implement a national rail strategy. Instead of spending the money on making more highways, which is extremely expensive, it's much more economical for us to transport our goods via rail systems. So not only will that take the pressure off the roadways, but it will also make it much more economical and environmental sense for us to transport goods via trains. The other thing that it's going to really do for us is going to really help increase tourism. If any of you have taken the train from Jasper to Vancouver, you know what a beautiful scenic trip that is, and just how many tourists come from around the world to enjoy that. So you imagine if we start doing something like that that connects the Crowsnest Pass up through to Banff, up through the corridor into Bragg Creek, and just have up 22, and just really have a beautiful scenic rail system that allows just for a massive tourist influx into this area. And like I said, it also will take the pressure off the roadways, and then transportation can happen. So the Green Party is wanting to do this national strategy, not just here, but all the way across Canada, and in having, even on Highway number 2, to start having a rail link between Calgary and Edmonton as well. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, you have 2 minutes. You don't have to use your 2 minutes. If you can make your point and move on, that is awesome. Let's move to the third question, and we're going to start up. Anybody have a rebuttal card? Oh, I'm sorry, John.
I'm sitting the closest to
I
you.
know. We need to have some more coffee very quickly. Sorry.
No problem.
Please continue.
Thank you. You know, Highway 3 and Highway 2, which is been called the Canada Next Corridor, Highway 2, those are both provincial highways. Those are provincial jurisdictions. And it's very important that we keep those jurisdictions. We do not want to be telling the province what its priorities are. However, in saying that, our area down here in the south, we have 2 very dynamic groups who work together. One is the Alberta Southwest Mayor and Reeves Association, which includes all the mayors and reeves of the municipalities in Southwest Alberta as well. They meet once a month with the members of Parliament and the MLAs in this riding. We have a Highway 3 corridor focus group that is working on trying to secure funding for Highway 3. That is probably the #1 priority, is twinning Highway 3 from the Crowsnest Pass to Fort Macleod for the mayors and reeves and municipalities in this area. But what we have to do is we have to make that a provincial priority as well. For us, as the federal government level, we are there to support the province when it sets its priorities. For example, we have the New Building Canada plan. That's $53 billion over the next 10 years. It is the longest and largest infrastructure program in Canadian history. It's the first time that municipalities have had long-term planning ability because those dollars of the federal gas tax are legislated. But it's up to the province and the municipalities to set its priorities and then for us to work with them. So for example, like I said, twinning Highway 3 is probably the top priority for this riding. But then we also have the 16 kilometers